The morning air was cool and the sky was painted with a soft golden light when a young woman named Mia stopped her small car beside a quiet country road. On the right side of the road, near an old wooden fence, stood a forgotten 1970s RV. Its once bright yellow paint had faded to a dull shade of brown, and patches of rust covered its sides. The windows were dusty, the tires flat, and the door hung slightly open. Most people would have seen it as useless junk, but Mia did not see it that way. She saw something different. Mia had always been someone who believed in second chances. She was 27, quiet by nature, and always carried a notebook full of her dreams. Life had not been kind to her lately. She had lost her small job at a cafe a few months ago, and was living in a small rented room that she could no longer afford. Her savings were almost gone. When her landlord told her that she had to leave by the end of the month, she did not know what to do. She had $300 left in her bank account, and no family nearby to help her. Still, she wanted to start fresh and find a way to build a new life for herself. As she stood beside the rusty RV, she felt something stir inside her. The vehicle looked broken and lonely, much like how she felt herself. She walked around it slowly, her fingers brushing over the rough metal. She could imagine what it might look like if it were cleaned, repaired, and painted again. A small home on wheels. A place where she could live freely, surrounded by nature, away from the noise of the world. An elderly man came out from a nearby farmhouse and waved to her. He had a kind smile and a hat pulled low over his head. His name was Tom. He had owned the RV for many years, but it had been sitting unused for decades. He told Mia that he had bought it back in 1978 with dreams of traveling across the country with his wife. But life had other plans. His wife had fallen sick and he never went on those trips. Since then, the RV had stayed parked where it was. Mia asked carefully, "Would you sell it to me?" Tom laughed kindly. "You want this old thing? It hasn't moved in 20 years. It's full of dust and rust." Mia smiled a little. "I know it looks bad, but I think I can fix it. I can clean it and make it beautiful again." Tom studied her face for a moment. He saw honesty in her eyes. "How much can you pay for it?" he asked. Mia hesitated and said softly, "I only have $300. Tom looked at the RV, then back at her. $300, he repeated. "You know what? It's yours. I'd rather see someone bring it back to life than send it to the junkyard." Mia's heart filled with joy. She thanked him again and again. For her, that rusty RV was not just an old vehicle. It was a new beginning. With the help of a neighbor who owned a tow truck, the RV was moved to a small piece of rented land that Mia had on the edge of town. When it arrived, she stood in front of it for a long time. The sunlight made the rust shine like copper, and the smell of old wood filled the air. She opened the door and stepped inside. The floor creaked beneath her feet. The seats were torn and spider webs hung in the corners. But she smiled. She could already see what it could become. That night she sat inside the RV with a candle beside her. The wind was cold and the silence was deep, but she felt peaceful. She took out her notebook and wrote at the top of a page, "My new home." Under that, she wrote 5 goals. Clean everything inside. Fix the broken floor and windows. Paint the walls and cabinets. Add small furniture and decorations. Make it warm, bright, and full of love. She knew it would take time, effort, and patience. She had no tools and no money left after buying the RV. But she had something more valuable than money. She had hope. The next morning, Mia began to work. She wore an old t-shirt, tied her hair, and put on a pair of gloves. She started by removing the broken seats and cleaning the dust. It was hard work. The air inside was heavy with the smell of old fabric and metal. Each time she swept the floor, a cloud of dust rose around her. But she kept smiling. Every piece of trash she threw out felt like a small step forward. By noon, a man from the neighboring land stopped by. His name was Liam. He had seen her working since early morning. "That's a lot of work for one person," he said kindly. "Are you planning to fix this old thing?" Mia wiped her hands and nodded. "Yes, I'm going to turn it into my home." Liam looked surprised. "It looks like it's falling apart." Mia smiled softly. "Maybe. But everything can be fixed if you believe in it." Liam thought for a moment, then went back to his shed and returned with a small box of tools. "I don't use these anymore," he said. "You can borrow them." She thanked him with genuine happiness. That small act of kindness gave her more energy to keep going. Over the next few days, Mia worked from sunrise to sunset. She washed the windows, scrubbed the walls, and cleaned every corner. Her hands became rough, but she felt proud every time she saw progress. She even found an old radio under one of the cabinets. After cleaning it, it still worked. From that day, she played soft songs while working. The music filled the air, turning the old RV into a place of hope and peace. Liam would sometimes stop by to help her with heavier work, like lifting the broken furniture or patching the holes in the floor. They would talk while they worked. He learned that Mia had lost her parents when she was young and had grown up mostly alone. She had always dreamed of building something of her own, something that made her feel safe. The RV, she said, was her chance to do that. One evening, after a long day of cleaning, Mia sat on the small steps of the RV, looking at the sky. The sun was setting behind the hills, painting everything in shades of orange and pink. The tiredness in her body was heavy, but her heart felt light. Liam joined her with 2 cups of tea. They sat quietly, watching the colors fade into night. "You know," Mia said softly, "when I first saw this RV, I thought it was just a piece of junk, but now I think it's a gift. It gave me something to look forward to again." Liam nodded. "Maybe the best things in life start in the most unexpected ways." Mia smiled. She did not know what the final result would be, but she knew one thing for sure. She was going to pour all her heart into this project. This rusty old RV was going to become something beautiful, something that told her story. That night she wrote one more line in her notebook. "It is not just an RV, it is my new beginning." She placed the notebook on the small counter beside her bed of blankets and closed her eyes. The soft hum of the wind passed through the cracks of the windows, and for the first time in a long while, Mia felt at peace. The journey ahead was long, but she was ready for it. The morning sun peeked through the clouds as Mia stood outside her newly acquired RV, taking in the quiet beauty of the countryside. The vehicle still looked old and fragile, but to her it was full of possibilities. She had spent the first few days cleaning the inside, removing broken furniture and sweeping away decades of dust. Every corner told a story, and every layer of dirt seemed to carry memories of the years the RV had been forgotten. She rolled up her sleeves and began the next phase of her plan, making it feel like a home. Mia started by fixing the floor. Some of the wooden panels were weak and creaked with every step. She carefully removed the damaged pieces and replaced them with old planks she had collected from a nearby lumber yard. Liam had brought them over for her, along with nails, hammers, and a toolbox he had found in his garage. Together they worked under the warm sunlight. Mia hammered slowly, making sure each plank was secure. Liam laughed as he handed her nails, saying, "You're a natural at this, Mia. I've never seen someone so determined." Mia smiled but did not respond. She wanted to focus, to make every step perfect. It was more than just fixing the RV. It was about creating a space that reflected hope and courage. The process was slow, but each improvement brought a sense of accomplishment that no words could describe. Next came the windows. Many of them were cracked and the seals were broken. Mia carefully removed the glass, replaced it with clear new panes, and secured them with wooden frames. The sunlight began to pour through the freshly cleaned windows, casting a warm glow across the floor. The RV seemed to wake up, as if it was grateful for the attention it was receiving. Once the windows were repaired, Mia turned her attention to the walls. She had collected some old paint from a local thrift shop, enough to cover the interior walls in a soft cream color. She mixed it carefully, making sure it was smooth, and began to brush it across the old surfaces. The smell of paint mixed with the lingering scent of the RV's past. Mia felt a strange sense of joy as she moved the brush steadily, knowing that each stroke was giving the old RV a new life. During the afternoons, she placed small plants on the windowsills. Each plant had been chosen carefully, some for their resilience, others for their gentle beauty. They added life and color to the small space, making it feel warm and welcoming. She even hung small handmade curtains on each window. The soft fabric moved lightly with the breeze, adding a sense of calmness and comfort. One day, as Mia worked inside, Liam stopped by with a small basket of supplies. "I thought you could use these," he said, handing her brushes, a hammer, and some wood polish. He smiled, watching her carefully arrange a small shelf for books. "It's amazing how much you've accomplished already. This RV doesn't feel like an old vehicle anymore. It feels like a home." Mia paused and looked around. The walls were painted, The windows sparkled and small shelves held books and little trinkets. It was far from perfect, but it was hers. She smiled, feeling a warmth she had not felt in a long time. The next challenge was the furniture. The old seats had been too damaged to keep, so Mia decided to make simple wooden benches with storage underneath. She spent hours measuring, cutting, and assembling the pieces. Liam helped her carry them inside, and together they placed the benches along the walls, creating a small but comfortable seating area. Evenings were filled with quiet reflection. Mia lit a small lamp, sat on one of the benches, and opened her notebook. She wrote down her thoughts, dreams, and plans. Each word she wrote reminded her of how far she had come. She reflected on the hard days when she had wondered if buying the RV was a mistake. Now every effort seemed worth it. One afternoon, Tom visited again. He looked at the transformed RV with eyes full of pride. "It's incredible," he said. "I never imagined it could look like this. My wife would have loved to see it." Mia smiled warmly. "Thank you for trusting me with it. It's more than just a project now. It feels alive." Tom nodded, touched by her words. "Sometimes things that are old and forgotten just need someone to care. You've shown that." After Tom left, Mia felt inspired to continue working. She wanted the RV to be not only livable, but also inviting to others. She began small interior decorations, hanging pictures on the walls, placing small handmade signs with encouraging words, and arranging her favorite books neatly on the shelves. Every detail mattered, and she wanted every visitor to feel the same warmth she felt. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Mia turned on the old radio she had found in the RV. It worked after a little cleaning, and soft music filled the space. She sat on the bench, watching the light fade, and thought about the journey she had started. It had been about so much more than fixing an old vehicle. It had been about hope, perseverance, and rediscovering herself. Days turned into weeks, and the RV continued to transform. The exterior was cleaned and polished. The paint gave it a cheerful glow, and small details like painted flowers and simple decorations added personality to the vehicle. Mia took pictures every step of the way, documenting the changes not for fame but for herself, as reminders of what patience and care could achieve. Liam often stopped by, bringing small gifts or tools, and sometimes just to sit and talk. Their conversations were filled with laughter and encouragement. He often reminded her, "Mia, what you're doing is extraordinary. Not many people would have had the courage to take something broken and make it beautiful." Mia felt grateful for his support, but remained humble. She knew the true strength came from within. Every morning she woke up motivated to keep improving, and every night she reflected on the progress. It was as if each day was a small victory. One day, a neighbor named Mrs. Clara noticed the changes from her garden. She had lived nearby for many years, and had seen countless people pass by the old RV without a second thought. She walked over and said softly, "I have never seen anyone care for something like this before. You have a gift, Mia." Mia thanked her kindly and showed her around. Mrs. Clara smiled as she walked through the small space. "It's not just the RV that's beautiful," she said. "It's the love you put into it." The word stayed with Mia long after Mrs. Clara left. She realized that the RV had become more than a home for herself. It had become a place that could inspire others, showing that with patience, care, and kindness, even something forgotten and broken could shine again. One quiet evening, after another day of work, Mia sat by the small open window, watching the stars appear in the sky. She thought about the journey ahead. There were still repairs to be made, plans to follow, and eventually a road trip she dreamed of taking. But for the first time, she felt confident that she could achieve it. She opened Tom's small wooden box again and looked at the postcards he had given her. Each one told a story. Each one was a dream waiting to be experienced. She picked one and wrote her first note in it. "Day 1 of my journey. I am ready to bring life to this old home, and in the process I hope to find a new life for myself." Mia closed the box carefully and placed it on the shelf. She looked around at the RV, at the soft glow of the lamp, the small plants, the freshly painted walls, and the benches she had built with her own hands. She felt a deep sense of pride but also humility. She knew this was just the beginning of a larger journey. The rusty 1970s RV, once abandoned and forgotten, now carried not just Mia's belongings, but her dreams, her hope, and her courage. It was no longer just an old vehicle. It was a symbol of determination and the beauty of giving new life to things that seemed beyond repair. Mia lay down on the bench she had built for herself, the soft blanket she had placed beneath her, making it feel like a proper bed. She closed her eyes and whispered softly, "Thank you for letting me find you. Together we will go far." With that, she drifted into a peaceful sleep, surrounded by the warmth and love she had created within the little home she had built from rust and hope. The sun rose gently over the quiet land as Mia stepped out of her small RV with a cup of tea in her hand. The light of the morning touched the roof, making the faded paint shine softly. She looked at it with pride. It was no longer just a piece of metal sitting in the dirt. It was slowly becoming a home. She had spent weeks cleaning, painting, and fixing the old RV. The hard work had left her tired, but each small change gave her new energy. The walls inside were now painted white and soft yellow. The broken seats had been replaced with simple wooden benches she made from old planks. She had placed a small curtain on every window, each one made by her hand from pieces of cloth she found at the local thrift shop. There was even a small shelf with her favorite books and a few tiny plants. Mia loved waking up each morning and opening the small window near her bed. The smell of fresh air reminded her of how far she had come since the day she bought the RV for $300. It had been a strange decision that many would not understand, but she did not care. She had built something beautiful out of something everyone else had given up on. One afternoon, while Mia was painting the outside of the RV, she saw Tom walking toward her from the nearby road. He had brought a small basket in his hand. When he reached her, he smiled warmly. "I can't believe what you've done with it," he said. "It looks like a completely new place," Mia smiled back. "It's still not finished, but it's coming together." Tom handed her the basket. "I brought you some fresh apples from my garden. I wanted to see how things were going. My wife would have loved to see this old RV looking so alive again." Mia thanked him and invited him to sit for a while. They sat outside under the shade of a tree. Tom looked at the RV with eyes full of memories. "When I first bought it," he said, "I thought I'd travel everywhere with my wife. Life had other plans and I never got to do it. But seeing you work on it like this makes me feel like it's finally going on the journey it was meant to take." His words touched Mia deeply. She said softly, "Maybe it still will. Maybe this RV still has stories to live." Tom smiled and nodded. "Maybe it does." After he left, Mia thought about what he said. She began to imagine traveling again. Not just living inside the RV, but taking it on the road, seeing new places and meeting new people. The idea made her heart race with excitement. That night, as she sat by the soft light of her small lamp, she began writing in her notebook again. She wrote a new list titled Next Steps. It had only 3 points. Fix the engine. Save some money for fuel. Take the RV on a trip. It sounded simple, but she knew it would not be easy. The engine had not worked in more than 20 years. She knew nothing about mechanics. Still, she believed she could find a way. A few days later, Liam came by after work to check on her progress. He had become one of her closest friends. He smiled as he looked inside the RV. "You've really turned this place into something special," he said. Mia laughed. "It's getting there, but I still need to fix the engine. I want to travel with it one day." Liam rubbed his chin. "I might know someone who can help. There's an old mechanic named Ben who lives near the gas station in town. He's retired now, but he still works on small projects. I'll talk to him." The next day, Liam brought Ben to meet Mia. He was a quiet man with gentle eyes and hands that had seen years of hard work. When he saw the RV, he smiled. "I used to fix these models when I was young," he said. "This one looks tired but strong." Mia told him her dream of getting the engine to work again. Ben listened carefully and agreed to help her, asking only for a small payment. Mia told him she did not have much money left. He waved his hand. "Don't worry about that now. I'll see what I can do." For the next few weeks, Ben came every other day to work on the RV's engine. Sometimes Liam helped him, while Mia stood nearby, handing them tools and learning as much as she could. She watched carefully, writing notes in her book about everything they did. It became a small classroom for her. One afternoon, after many days of effort, Ben turned the key and the engine made a soft rumbling sound. For a moment, it stopped again. He turned it one more time, and this time the sound grew stronger. The RV came to life. The noise filled the air, and Mia's eyes filled with tears. "It's working," Ben said proudly. "It still has power in it." Mia could hardly speak. She laughed and clapped her hands like a child. It felt like a miracle. She thanked Ben again and again, and he smiled, saying it was just waiting for someone who cared. That evening, Mia sat inside her RV with the radio playing a soft tune. The air was cool, and the light from the lamp made everything look warm. She felt a peace she had never known before. The world outside might still be uncertain, but inside this small space, everything felt right. Over the next days, Mia began adding the finishing touches. She painted small flowers on the outer sides of the RV, placed more plants on the window shelves, and hung photos of her favorite places. She also wrote a small message on the door, "Welcome home." One morning, a small group of people from the nearby town stopped by. They had heard about the young woman who had turned an old broken RV into a beautiful home. They wanted to see it with their own eyes. Mia welcomed them kindly and showed them around. They were amazed by what she had done. An older woman said, "You've turned something forgotten into something full of life." "This is what hope looks like," Mia smiled. She had never felt so proud. In the following weeks, she became a small inspiration to the people around her. Some of them brought her gifts like paint, fabric, and old tools. Others asked her for advice on fixing their own old things. The RV was no longer just a home. It had become a symbol of what patience and love could create. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Mia sat outside with Liam and Tom. The air smelled of fresh grass, and the sky was painted in soft shades of orange. Tom said, "You've done something amazing here. Mia, you gave life back to something that was long forgotten." Mia looked at the RV and said, "I think it gave life back to me too." The three sat quietly, watching the light fade and the stars begin to appear. Inside the RV, a small lamp glowed warmly through the window, like a heart beating softly in the dark. Mia knew this was just the beginning. Soon she would take the RV on the road, traveling to new places, creating new memories, and sharing her story with others. What started as a rusty vehicle bought for $300 had become a dream, built from hope, kindness, and love. The morning sky was clear, and the air was fresh with the smell of spring flowers when Mia stood in front of her RV, ready for the most important day of her life. After months of work, her dream had finally come true. The old 1970s RV, once covered in rust and dust, now stood shining in soft cream and yellow colors. The windows were clean, the curtains danced in the morning breeze, and the small painted flowers on the sides made it look cheerful and alive. Liam stood beside her with a proud smile. "It looks perfect," he said. Mia smiled back. "It feels like home now." Tom had also come to see her off. He carried a small brown box in his hands. "Before you go," he said, "I want you to have this. It belonged to my wife. She used to keep postcards from every place she dreamed of visiting. Maybe you can fill it with your own memories." Mia opened the box carefully. Inside were old postcards showing beaches, mountains, cities, and lakes. She felt her eyes sting with emotion. "Thank you, Tom. I'll keep them safe." Tom nodded warmly. "Take care of yourself out there. This old RV has found the right owner." After saying goodbye, Mia climbed into the driver's seat. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the steering wheel. The last time the RV had been on the road was more than 2 decades ago. She took a deep breath, turned the key, and the engine started smoothly. Liam waved at her as the RV rolled forward slowly. The feeling of movement brought tears to her eyes. She was finally free. As she drove down the road, the world looked different. The wind blew through the small open window and sunlight danced across her dashboard. Every turn of the wheel felt like turning a new page of her life. She passed green fields, quiet villages, and winding roads. People looked at her RV and smiled. Some even waved as she went by. By afternoon, she stopped near a small lake surrounded by tall trees. The water was calm and reflected the sky like a mirror. Mia parked the RV close to the shore and stepped out. She spread out a blanket and sat down with her notebook. The sound of birds and the gentle waves made her heart peaceful. She opened Tom's box and took out one of the postcards showing a blue lake. On the back, she wrote her first note. "Day 1. I found a place that feels like peace." She placed it back into the box carefully. In the following days, Mia traveled from one small town to another. She visited markets, met kind strangers, and took pictures of the places she loved. She began to share her journey on a small social page that she created using her phone's camera. She posted simple updates about how she had turned an old RV into a home and how it was changing her life. At first, only a few people saw her posts, but slowly more began to follow her story. They left comments filled with encouragement. People wrote messages like, "You inspire me to start again and your story gives me hope." Mia was surprised by how many hearts her simple journey was touching. One evening, she parked her RV near a small town park where local children were playing. A little girl named Anna came running up to her and asked, "Did you really fix this RV all by yourself?" Mia smiled and said, "Yes, but I had help from good people." Anna's eyes were wide with wonder. "It looks so pretty. Can I see inside?" Mia nodded and showed her the small space filled with warm lights, books, and plants. The little girl looked around in amazement. "It's like a tiny house," she said. Mia laughed softly. "Yes, it's small, but it has everything I need." Anna's mother soon came to thank Mia for being kind to her daughter. She told Mia that seeing her story online had inspired her to start repairing an old sewing machine she had given up on. Mia felt her heart swell with happiness. She realized that her little home on wheels was doing more than just giving her peace. It was helping others believe in second chances, too. The next week, Mia drove to the mountains. The road was narrow and curved, but the view was breathtaking. She parked near a quiet viewpoint and stepped out to watch the sun go down behind the peaks. The sky turned shades of gold and pink, and the world felt endless. She took a deep breath of the cool air and felt grateful for every step that had led her there. That night, as she sat inside the RV, she wrote in her notebook again, "Sometimes life gives us broken things so we can learn how to heal." This RV was broken and so was I. Now we are both whole. Days turned into weeks and Mia's journey continued. She visited beaches, valleys, and old towns. Everywhere she went, she met new people and collected small memories. Some gave her gifts like handmade crafts. Others simply shared stories of their lives. She filled Tom's box with postcards from every place she visited, writing a few words on each one. Every card carried a memory of kindness, struggle, or joy. One afternoon, while she was parked near a forest, she received a message from Liam. He had been following her posts online and wrote, "You've come so far, Mia. Everyone in town talks about your story. You've made us proud." Mia smiled as she read it. She took a picture of the RV under the trees and sent it back with a short message. "I couldn't have done it without all of you." Later that night, rain began to fall. The sound of raindrops hitting the roof of the RV made a soft rhythm. She sat by the window, sipping warm tea and watching the drops slide down the glass. For the first time in her life, she felt completely safe, even though she was far from everything she once knew. She thought about her past, about how lost she had felt when she first saw the rusty RV. Back then, she had been scared and uncertain. Now she was strong, calm, and full of hope. The journey had changed her in ways she never expected. The next morning, when the rain stopped, she stepped outside and looked around. The forest was quiet except for the soft sound of birds. The air smelled fresh. She took out her phone and recorded a short video. In it, she said, "If you ever feel broken or lost, remember that you can start again. It doesn't matter where you begin, only that you do." She uploaded it to her page and continued her journey. The video quickly reached many people. Comments began pouring in from strangers all over, thanking her for sharing her message. Some said they had decided to fix their own lives, homes, or dreams because of her story. As the sun set that evening, Mia looked at the glowing sky and whispered a small thank you to the world. She had once thought her story was about fixing an old vehicle, but now she understood it was about fixing hearts, including her own. Inside the RV, a soft light glowed through the curtains. The postcards in Tom's box rustled slightly in the wind, as if they were alive with all the memories she had written on them. The road still stretched far ahead, full of unknown places and new stories waiting to be lived. Mia smiled as she looked at the map pinned to her wall. Her next destination was already marked. She was ready to keep going, ready to see what more the world had in store for her. What had started as a rusty, forgotten RV was now carrying a story of hope across the world, 1 mile at a time. The soft morning sun shone through the small windows of the RV as Mia opened her eyes. She stretched her arms and smiled at the warm light. Another day had begun, and she was parked near a quiet seaside town. The sound of waves reached her ears, gentle and steady, like a song from nature itself. She made a cup of tea, sat by the window, and looked at the ocean. The calmness filled her heart. She thought about how far she had come. Months ago, she was standing in front of a broken and rusty RV, not knowing what her future would hold. Now she was living a life she had once only dreamed of. Her little home on wheels had taken her to mountains, lakes, forests, and towns. Every mile she traveled had taught her something new about herself and about the world. As she sipped her tea, she opened Tom's wooden box, which was now almost full of postcards. Each one carried a small message written by her hand. Some cards spoke of laughter, others of struggle, but every single one held a piece of her heart. She picked up one that read, Day 40. I helped a lost traveler find his way. Another said, Day 70. I painted the RV door again because I wanted it to shine brighter. Each memory reminded her of the journey she had made. She smiled softly and whispered, You really did come to life again, old friend. She ran her fingers along the RV wall beside her as if thanking it for carrying her through every path. Later that morning, Mia decided to take a walk along the beach. The sand was cool beneath her feet, and the wind carried the smell of salt and seaweed. As she walked, she saw a group of children collecting shells. They waved at her happily and she waved back. One of them called out, We saw your video online. My mom showed us. You fixed an old house on wheels, right? Mia laughed kindly. Yes, I did. And it's my home now. The children smiled and one of them said, My dad said you're brave. Her heart felt warm hearing that. She never thought her simple story would reach so many people. But her videos and posts had spread far beyond her small town. Her story had become known on many pages across the internet. People from all over were touched by her journey and her kindness. Many had started sending her letters and messages, telling her how her story had inspired them to repair old things, follow forgotten dreams, or simply not give up. When she returned to her RV, she checked her phone. There were dozens of new messages from people around the world. One message was from a woman who wrote, I lost hope after losing my job, but when I saw your story, I started again. Thank you for reminding me that life can start new at any time. Another message said, Your RV is not just a home. It's a lesson for all of us. Mia read each message with gratitude. She never imagined that her small life project would reach so many hearts. It made her feel both proud and humble. A few days later, she received an email from a local news reporter who wanted to interview her. The message said, Your story has touched many lives. We would love to feature your journey and show the transformation of your RV. At first, Mia was nervous. She was not used to being in the spotlight, but she remembered her purpose. She had not done all this to be famous. She had done it to find peace and meaning, and if sharing her story could bring hope to others, then she wanted to do it. The next morning, the reporter arrived at the seaside spot where her RV was parked. The camera crew was friendly and respectful. They filmed the inside and outside of the RV while Mia talked about how she had bought it for $300, how she had worked with her hands, how Liam and Tom had helped her, and how every challenge had taught her something. As she spoke, she did not try to make her story sound grand or perfect. She told it simply and honestly. When I bought this RV, I thought I was saving it, she said softly, but in truth, it saved me. It gave me purpose when I had none. It showed me that even broken things can become beautiful again if someone believes in them. The reporter was moved by her words. After the interview was broadcast on local television, the story spread even more. Soon it was shared across other channels and social media. People began calling her the woman who turned rust into hope. Letters started arriving from schools, families, and even people in other countries. Some shared pictures of their own small projects they had started after being inspired by her. Others simply wrote to thank her for reminding them that kindness and patience could still change lives. One evening, as she sat under the stars beside her RV, Mia received a phone call from Liam. His voice was filled with happiness. You're on the national news, Mia. Everyone's talking about your story. You've touched more hearts than you'll ever know. Mia smiled softly and said, I didn't do it for attention, Liam. I just wanted to live honestly. I know, he replied, and maybe that's why people love your story so much. After the call ended, Mia looked at the night sky. The stars were bright and the ocean waves sparkled in the moonlight. She thought about Tom, about Liam, about the people she had met along the way, and about the RV that had carried her through everything. The next morning, she decided to visit Tom again. She drove back to the quiet countryside where it had all begun. When she reached the farmhouse, Tom was sitting on the porch with his hat tilted back and a smile on his face. He stood up when he saw her and said, You've become quite the traveler. I saw you on television. My wife would have been proud. Mia laughed gently and handed him the wooden box filled with postcards. I thought you should see this. Every card has a place I visited and something I learned. Tom opened the box and looked through the cards slowly. His eyes filled with tears as he said, "You've given this old RV a new life and you've given me a reason to smile again." Mia said, "You gave me a chance when no one else did. You trusted me with something everyone thought was worthless." Tom nodded. Sometimes all it takes is one person who believes. They sat together for a long time watching the sun set behind the hills. The sky turned orange and gold and the sound of birds filled the air. The RV stood nearby, glowing softly in the evening light. Before leaving, Mia took out one last postcard. It showed a picture of the same hills where they were sitting. On the back she wrote, "Day 120. The journey ends where it began." She placed it in the box and handed it to Tom. As she drove away, she looked at the farmhouse growing smaller in the mirror. She felt a deep sense of peace. Her journey was not about distance or fame. It was about finding meaning in small things, about believing that even broken stories can have beautiful endings. The world had seen her as a woman who fixed an old RV, but she knew the truth. What she had really done was fix her heart. And in doing so, she had reminded others that hope is never lost. That night, parked near a quiet meadow, she sat by the window of her RV and looked at the stars. The light from the lamp inside glowed softly and the postcards on the shelf rustled in the wind. She smiled and whispered, "Thank you for the journey." The story of the rusty 1970s RV that was bought for $300 had reached millions. But for Mia, its greatest achievement was much simpler. It had taught her that beauty is not in perfection but in the courage to start again. And as the moon rose higher in the sky, the small RV rested quietly, carrying within it a story of hope, kindness, and a woman who turned her pain into purpose.